Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Be honest. When's the last time you had a homemade meal? We get it. Between meetings, workout classes, and the kids' after-school sports, who's got time to cook? That's where HelloFresh comes in. No matter how busy you get, HelloFresh has everything you need to get an easy, home-cooked meal on the table. With flavor-packed recipes like Parmesan herb-crusted salmon, you'll be filling your kitchen with the cozy aromas of a homemade meal in no time. So go ahead, try HelloFresh. It's homemade, made easy. Learn more at HelloFresh.com.
It's the Larry Kudlow Show. Free market prosperity starts here. Now, here's Larry Kudlow.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Larry Kudlow. This is the Larry Kudlow Show. By the way, you can live stream us over the internet. LarryKudlowShow.com. LarryKudlowShow.com. Playing across the country, around the world, throughout the solar system, including the Milky Way. And during the week, please join us, Fox Business Network, fabulous Fox Business Network. Name of the show is Kudlow. Every day, 4 to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if you can't make it at 4, just text your favorite 9-year-old, and she will show you how to DVR the show, and you will never miss a single thing. So, Trump bump in stocks, inaugural week. Dow up 936 points. Everything else was up about 2%, not quite 2% across the board. Interest rates benign. All eyes on oil prices after Mr. Trump kind of put the wood to Saudi Arabia and, of course, his own drill, baby, drill executive orders. So that's an interesting point. Oil prices. Wow, how about that? Anyway, let's talk about it with Nancy Tengler, CEO and CIO of Laffer Tengler Investments. Her latest book is The Women's Guide to Successful Investing. Pete Najarian, co-founder of Market Rebellion and optionMONSTER. Welcome to both of you. Another Trump bump, Nancy. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I loved it because the week before, what you heard from the pundits was, well, the Trump trade is unwinding. And really what it was tax loss harvesting and then rebuying of names, that the losers were being rebought and the winners that had done well in 2024 were being sold in 2025. So I love using the volatility created by the algos and the hedge funds and the pundits really to work to our advantage by investing while volatility is rife. So listen, I think we're in, as the president would say, a golden age. This is reminiscent of the 1990s. Where we had, 5 years of performance above 20%, at or above 20% for the S&P. So productivity continues to drive this growth, economic growth and margin growth and earnings growth. So I think, you strap in, you use the sell-offs to add to your holdings, and you just be prepared for volatility because we're going to get it from this president and those around him. And that's okay. Volatility is a friend of the long-term investor.
Well, I think that, it's interesting. He puts out about 100 executive orders. I don't know what the right number is, but there's an executive order for everything. But basically, he's making good on his promises, left and right. And it was also interesting. His inauguration speech was more general, just optimistic, talking about the golden era and improving America's standing in the world and so forth. He didn't mention much economics and he didn't mention much about tax cuts, but he made up for it at his Davos speech, where he spent quite a lot of time on tax cuts and deregulation and growth. And I say that, Pete Najarian, because that's very business friendly and it's very stock market friendly. And I don't know anything about timing. I'm a buy and hold guy, but I think you're going to get at some point, and the Congress is getting to work on it, and his nominations are getting through, Scott, my pal Kevin Hassett was sworn in as the National Economic Council Director. Scott Bessent will be confirmed by the Senate. No problems there. So it's a good team and a very pro-business, pro-stock market group. And that's got to have an impact, Pete.
There's no doubt about it. I agree with you. And Nancy is always right. She really is. I mean, I'm looking at this as you guys both phrased it, the golden age and deregulation and business friendly. All of that is true. And I think that the exciting part for me was the fact that this week, obviously, it was a shortened week because Monday was the MLK as well as Inauguration Day. And boy, but since then, Trump has been on the ground and running and absolutely sprinting. And as you said, all these executive orders and all the rest of it. But, you know, you also mentioned a little bit about volatility. And it's interesting because I totally agree. Right now with the volatility index of the S&P 500 trading, call it 15, we always use the expression, buy when you can, not when you have to. And I think this is a time where, you know, you'd want to have some of that volatility at the level of 15 because there's always the opportunity for something to maybe get the markets wrestled up a little bit and maybe get them back over 20 or 30. And there's some option traders out there who buy volatility at a consistent rate, and very often they can be right. And we've seen a little bit more of that buying way out of the money calls. In other words, presently we're trading at a 15 on the VIX, and they're looking at buying anything 30 and above for the most part. And so maybe expecting to see something to happen in a big way, but we'll see. I can tell you this, the volumes in the options market right now are absolutely extraordinary. Right now in January, we've averaged about 57 million. You were just talking about longer term, and this is the short term, but in January, you know, we're at 57.5 million contracts per day. And in 2022, just for context, you were 40 million a day. And in 24 last year, we were 48 million a day. We're 10 million above that. So it gives you a little bit of an idea that people are excited, I think. And with some of the business friendliness, that is giving the markets an absolute boost to the upside. The Dow was up 1,000 points just in the first 3 days of trade, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Gave back a little on Friday. NASDAQ was up over 400. S&P was at a new record at up 120. I think a lot of that speaks to exactly what we're seeing in the White House right now.
When is the next OPEC meeting? Isn't it coming up?
It's got to be. I don't know.
You're asking Pete.
The reason I ask is maybe one of my brilliant producers can find out the next OPEC meeting, but I think it is coming up. My point here is that Trump fingered Saudi Arabia at the Davos speech and said, you got to get oil prices down. Saudis have been withholding production. They're way below what they could produce. Trump looked at that as an issue regarding Russia. Cheaper prices will hurt Russia. But I think that there's a certain, and don't think enough people have focused on this, the potential that oil prices could come down more than you'd think if the Saudis and the OPEC respond to Trump's call for action. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know the politics of OPEC. I don't follow it the way I used to. Maybe I'll start following it again. But he kind of put it to the Saudis. And, of course, that would crush Iran, too. I mean, oil prices, I don't know how much there. Let's see. Brent crude, $78.50. West Texas, $74.96, called $75. You know, that could come down $5. Could come down $10 for all I know. And if it did, that's just going to be wildly bullish. No inflation and interest rates would follow, right? Trump wasn't attacking the Fed. He was saying if you get oil prices down, then interest rates will come down immediately. What if that happened? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and if we increase production, as he outlined in the speech, I think you'll definitely see he doesn't even need OPEC's cooperation. Our production will drive prices down. So I think, I mean, with AI and the energy requirements and the sort of pivots to nuclear and natural gas, I think the whole energy policy is going to be bullish for American business. And I listened to the speech. The only disagreement I had was that President Trump said that inflation was at historic highs in modern history. And if I'm not modern, then that's okay. But I remember 18% in the Carter year, so I took a breath on that one. But if you listen to like Schwartzman from Blackstone, who said he was talking to his European colleagues and they're really frustrated by slower growth due to the EU regulatory burden, it's also higher energy prices in the EU, significantly higher. Yep. So I think this is, we've been writing about it. We think this is going to be the downward pressure on inflation and all this chatter about tariffs being inflationary. If you look back at Trump's administration and then the Biden administration, Trump 1.0 and then Biden, tariffs on China went up, but they went down in most other important emerging markets, including Vietnam, significantly. So I just think you have to step back and say, I don't think these people want to blow up the global economy, this administration, and they're going to make decisions. They're going to use tariffs as rhetoric to motivate, governments to step in line and be fair. And I think that's the key thing, is that we haven't had fair trade. So I don't know. Pete probably has more.
May 28th. May 28th. That's the next OPEC meeting.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean they couldn't move before that, the Saudis, that is. Couldn't, as kind of good faith. Dan Briette, who knows a whole lot about this, was just on. He didn't think near-term prices would move that much. But I'm just saying the wild card here is what the Saudis are going to do in response to their conversations with Trump. I mean, I don't want to put too much emphasis on that. There are other good things happening in the market. But that one could be an unexpected delight. All right, let's take a break. Nancy Tengler of Laffer Tengler Investments, Pete Najarian, Market Rebellion, and optionMONSTER. I'm Kudlow. Be right back.
This is the Larry Kudlow Show.
Whether it's a movie night or just midday, Skinny Pop is a salty snack that keeps on giving. Made with just 3 simple ingredients for an irresistibly delicious taste and a large serving size that lasts. Deliciously popped, perfectly salted. Skinny Pop, popular for a reason. Shop Skinny Pop now.
Some things you wouldn't mind being stuck with, like a huge inheritance. But a phone that has to be plugged in just right so it charges is not one of those things. Switch to Verizon and we'll pay off your old phone up to $800 via prepaid MasterCard for a new one on us. Just trade in any phone from our top brands with select unlimited plans. $829.99 purchase with new smartphone line on select unlimited plans. Minimum $90 per month with auto pay plus taxes and fees for 36 months required. Less $830 trade-in/promo credit applied over 36 months. Trade-in terms apply. Payoff phone requires smartphone purchase and port-in with new smartphone line on select plan. Must provide most recent bill showing payoff amount of eligible phone. Additional terms apply.
Now, back to the Larry Kudlow Show.
We're talking stocks. Nancy Tengler, CEO and CIO of Laffer Tengler Investments, in her book, latest book, The Women's Guide to Successful Investing. Pete Najarian, co-founder of Market Rebellion and optionMONSTER. Basically, though, I think, Pete, the profits are the mother's milk of stocks. Profit story looks good. Nancy talked about the productivity factor, which looks pretty good. I don't think I see any big jolts. Putting oil aside and Saudis aside, I don't think the Fed's going to do anything. The Fed's on hold. I think the Fed should stay on hold for years to come, at least until Trump gets his program enacted. I don't think they're going to cut. I don't think they're going to raise. I'm looking at the 10-year is 462. It's in a trading range. I think the 10-year is right where it ought to be. I mean, if inflation is 2.5 to 3 and the economy is 2.5 to 3, the 10-year actually might even be a little short, for heaven's sakes. But I don't see anything bad jolts to the market. Do you?
I do not. I totally agree with you. As a matter of fact, the one thing that it's funny that you bring up the same thing that I was going to go to, which is the 10-year. That's what I look at. And At 4.62, is it a problem? No. But obviously we see the movement of the 10-year and some of the effects that it oftentimes has with the NASDAQ. But it's not exactly a perfect science. It doesn't, if the 10-year is going up, it doesn't mean the NASDAQ has to go down, but it oftentimes is going down. So it's definitely something that I think we all pay attention to on a day in and day out basis. I don't see any real, hitches to the market either. As a matter of fact, it seems like we are in a position now because of President Trump and all the different things that he's working on and putting out there on a daily basis since getting into office. I feel like we're in the right place at the right time. The earnings season has been absolutely tremendous already. And when we started it off with the financials, they absolutely crushed it. And I think they're going to continue to be very strong just because of the investment banking side, all the deal making that's going to be going on, the deregulation. I think all of that plays into that whole thing. And then you look at what's really going on the energy front. I think nuclear is where we're staring at right now. And we talk about AI, we talk about data centers and all of this. Well, it's going to take a heck of a lot more energy. And I've talked about this before in the previous couple of months, but I think more so than ever, nuclear is very, very important for the growth of where we're going. And you take a look at some of those various nuclear energy stocks right now, they're up 70% year to date. And I'm talking about, January 1 or 2 and Oklo and NuScale and Nano Nuclear Energy. I mean, they're unbelievable performers right now, and that's for the future. But it certainly is something very, very interesting to watch. And I think for the people who don't feel comfortable in something like that, I think Constellation Energy and Vistra Energy and some of those names also are performing well. Probably don't feel quite as toppy, though, as we're looking at in some of the other nuclear names.
Well, Trump is very pro-nuke.
Yeah.
He's very pro-nuke. And even though nuke is the cleanest burning fuel, the Bidens were against nuke. I mean, it just shows you their ideology, their left-wing ideology was more important than the actual climate. But no, Trump is pro-nuke. Bank stocks up another point. Bank stocks, 52-week change, 44%. Even though banks don't like crypto people, they don't like conservatives, they don't like Christians, they don't like gun makers. I don't know who they like. I mean, Trump really called them out. It's called out the B of A, a little bit J.P. Morgan. He said, you too, Jamie. Chase Bank has a reputation. But, of course, I guess in fairness, and I hate to be fair to the banks, but I'll be fair, a lot of this was the Biden regulators forcing them to do this. Mm-hmm. A lot of this was. Yeah. And now that the Trump regulators are not going to force them to do this, presumably they'll allow conservatives to bank. I mean, I guess that's right. Nobody ever shut me down, but I use a really local banks in Connecticut, so I don't know. You own banks, Nancy Tengler?
We do. We're overweight, the group. I mean, we're overweight financials, but I loved that whole slap down. And I just love the way that I think it's more like men respond this way. Like Brian Moynihan just sort of sat there and then said, oh, our good friend so-and-so says hello. And I can't believe you just said that, which is probably what
bad. Really, so bad, And then, of course, they tried to deny it. And then on the Internet, 1,000 people starts chiming in how they were deep.
Melania.
Yeah, that's right. Melania, too. That's exactly right. I mean, they debank everybody. I don't know where their deposits come from. I guess you have to go out
foreigners.
And buy them cheap. Yeah, foreigners, man. I mean, there really is a laundry list, and Trump laid that out. It was very good. So, Nancy, but you're not really a stock picker. You're buy and hold, aren't you?
I mean, we pick. We put out a piece called 5 for 25, and Goldman Sachs, to Pete's point, and he's 100% right on what he just said, is one of our 5 for 25. And it's the investment banking, the hope for M&A not being Lena-conned. And then we have a number of tech names in there, including ServiceNow. Amazon is our top pick for the decade that we made a couple of years ago. Broadcom, which we call the poor man's NVIDIA, and Spotify, which is a name that we've owned for a long time. So
Broadcom's a good company. It's a good company.
It is.
Yeah, it's a smart CEO. It's a good company. You're right. Mm-hmm. Goldman, by the way, is up 68% last 52 weeks. Of the biggest banks, they're the best performer. So
and still pretty cheap.
Well, I don't know. They don't. Did they debank? We got to have a list of debank stuff. That's what we're going to have to
I've been debanked, but we can talk about that later.
They wouldn't make loans to gun makers. They wouldn't make loans to fossil fuel companies. I don't know who they made loans to. Thank you, Nancy Tengler. Thank you, Pete Najarian. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry.